Chapter 11. The Adventures of the Third Dervish. Clasping his hands a little below his knees, the third dervish began his tale. I was born a prince of Persia. My father was a most popular king, and had no other children but myself. When I was young, I used to play backgammon and chess, and hawked with my companions to my heart's content. One day, while wandering a long way from the palace, we came to a very beautiful piece of countryside. As far as the eye could see, there were trees and flowering shrubs, fountains in the rocks, and bright emerald green grass. We got off our horses and walked them, enjoying the song of the birds and the scent of the flowering blossoms. All at once we saw a delicately formed black deer, covered from neck to haunches with a brocade cloth, wearing a collar set with precious stones. Hanging around its neck was a bell of steel, damascened with finest gold, and fearlessly it grazed within a few feet of us, never lifting its head from the grass. Suddenly it started, and looking at us with its beautiful brown eyes, long lashed as a maiden of Shiraz, it moved away. I was overcome with delight at the sight of such a beautiful creature, and I wanted to catch it alive. "Stay where you are," I whispered to my friends, "and I will creep up to it. Do not follow me. I will do it successfully by myself." I leapt onto my horse and followed the black deer, which was by now gliding over the plain very quickly indeed. It began to bound and fled as swift as the wind. However, I could not overtake it, for as speedily as I rode, the deer's pace was very much quicker. My horse's neck was wet with sweat, its lips were flecked with foam, so hard did I ride it. Still the deer kept ahead of us. The night was coming, and I did not know where I was. Yet I did not think of turning back. I must win. It was only a deer after all, I told myself, with no chance of taking it alive. I drew my hunting bow and arrow and let fly. The arrow caught the deer in the thigh, and it began to limp toward the foot of a mountain. I got down from my saddle and made my way on foot, feeling all the excitement of the chase. Presently a dome appeared. When I got near it, I saw a beautiful garden and a fountain in the fading light. The deer had disappeared. I was thirsty and dusty, and washed my face in the fountain and drank deeply of its cool waters. Suddenly I heard the sound of weeping. "Oh, child," said a voice, "may the arrow of my sadness stick in the heart of he who shot you. May God make him a mourner if you are killed." I looked in through the door and saw a thin, pale, white-bearded old man drawing my arrow from the thigh of the black deer. "I did not know it was your pet deer, respected sir," I said with bent head. "I am very sorry to have shot at it. It was in the heat of the moment. I am a great hunter." "You have injured a dumb animal which has done you no harm," he said angrily. "But if you have committed this crime only through ignorance, God forgive you." I sat down beside him and tried all that I could to help in the operation. We pulled out the arrow with a great deal of trouble, and then the old man put some soothing and healing ointment on the wound. We washed our hands and ate, the old man handing me a bowl of food. After eating and drinking, I lay down and slept. In the middle of the night, after dreaming fitfully, I woke and looked around the room, but I was completely alone. There was no sign of the old white-bearded man, or the gentle black deer, nor anyone else. I sprang up and looked everywhere in that apartment. There seemed to be something strange in that place. What was it? In one corner I saw a curtain which was apparently concealing something. I went to it and pulled it aside. A throne was placed there, upon which was seated a lady as beautiful as the moon upon her 14th night. Ringlets hung on both sides of her face, very full and loosely curled, and of jet black. She was smiling, and her face was at an intriguing angle. At her feet sat the white-bearded man, and he was weeping most bitterly. I could not understand this tableau, and seeing the lady's perfection of face and form, I lost my senses, falling to the ground. The old man sprinkled my face with water, and brought me to consciousness in a few minutes. I rose and knelt before the angelic creature and wished her peace. But she did not reply, nor in any way show that she had seen me in that place. Her exquisite eyes were turned away, fixed on the far distance. "Oh, lovely, angelic being," I stammered, "of what faith are you, that you do not answer the salute of peace? Why are you so proud?" I talked a lot to her in this way, half in jest and half in earnest. Yet she still did not answer. She sat like a statue of alabaster. I laid my hand on her feet. They felt quite cold, as though carved from stone. In grief, I started back when I realized that this lovely lady was, in fact, a statue. "I have struck your deer with an arrow, but you have struck the arrow of love into my heart that can never be withdrawn. Tell me, why have you made this idol, and why, having left the world of men, do you live in this desolate place?" I asked. "O son," said he, "may the Almighty keep everyone safe from the fire of love that will not die. Do you remember the tale of the insane lover Majnun? What can you gain from hearing my story?" "Tell me your story," I pleaded, gently. I felt that it might help the old man in such desolate surroundings to talk to a fellow human being. "My name is Niman Saya. Once I was a great merchant, traveling everywhere except to the island of the Franks. So I decided to go there with some friends, and at last arrived. Everywhere there were magnificent buildings which surely never could be surpassed anywhere in the world. In the bazaars and streets there was paving of great beauty, and water for everyone to drink at public fountains. At night the streets were lighted, and outside the city there were delightful gardens, where rare flowers and shrubs were to be seen in vast numbers, even as great as those to be shown to us in paradise. When we arrived, they asked us, 'Who is your chief?' I was pointed out as the leader, and a steward said to me, 'The princess has heard that you have come from a distant country, and wants to have a look at your merchandise. So, take with you whatever merchandise may be fit for nobles of high degree, and come to her house.' 'I am very tired indeed,' I said. 'I beg that you will let me attend the lady tomorrow when I have had a rest, for otherwise I shall be confused in her presence, and shall forget my prices and so on.' Next day I called all my merchants together, and we went to the door of the Seraglio. The doorkeeper sent in news of my arrival, and I alone went in with the very best of our merchandise. Inside it was like a scene from fairyland. Wherever I looked, I saw the most beautiful women, some with long robes, some with short ones, and all looking like fairies with their wings shorn. At last I reached the royal presence, and my legs shook as I placed my goods before the princess. Most delicate-looking ladies of every size and condition stood about with arms hanging at their sides, in groups and by themselves. The princess selected from the jewels and silks certain things which she liked. She gave them to her head servant, and said that the price would be given to me next day. I was delighted that I should be able to go there again on the morrow, and bowed my way out. I spent the night in tossing and turning, and seemed to have had the most erotic dreams that ever troubled man, from dark to the first streaks of light. In the morning, as soon as I was dressed, I again went to wait upon the princess, and I was kept waiting quite a long time, as I had arrived far too early for her to see me. However, finally I was admitted, and the princess sent everyone else away, so that she could converse with me privately. "You shall be paid well," said she in a clear voice, "as long as you do something which I am about to ask you." I answered, "Princess, my life and my goods are yours to command. Anything which I can do for you, even if it be to lay down my life, I will do." On hearing these words and looking into my face to reassure herself, the princess called for a pen case and wrote a note. She put the note into a small pearl-embroidered purse and wrapped that in a silk handkerchief. This packet she gave to me. She also gave me a ring from her own finger, and she said, "On the other side of the city there is a large garden, called the Garden of the Happy Heart. Go there. Someone called Amir Khusru is the superintendent of that place. Deliver to him this ring from my finger, and give him blessings from me. Hand him this note, and ask him to give you a reply for it. Return quickly, and you will see what a reward I shall give you for this trifling service." I went to the place she had described. At the gate of the garden I was seized by an armed man and taken before one dressed in chain mail and steel breastplates, with 500 archers at his command. I made him my salams and told him my errand, showing him the ring the princess had given me. He sighed and turned his eyes up to heaven, then said, "Yes, you may deliver the note. Go into the garden with the soldier and give the letter to the man confined in yonder cage hung in that great tree." I was rather taken aback, but continued to walk forward until I came to the tree where the cage was hung. Among those flowers and tinkling fountains and scented blossoms, it was very incongruous to see such a sight. A handsome young man in a cage of iron. I saluted him and gave him the paper on which the lady had written through the bars of his cage. The singing birds warbled in the branches of the tree, and the waters made the place cool and completely delightful. The young man opened the letter and read it eagerly, and inquired with affection about the health of the princess. No sooner had I begun to speak about how well she was, than a whole army of Abyssinians appeared, and I was attacked on all sides. I could do nothing to defend myself. I had not even a dagger in my belt. So I was much wounded. I fainted with the shock of the onslaught, and only came to myself when I felt that I was being carried on someone's shoulders. 2 soldiers were speaking to each other. One said, "Let us cast his body on the plain. The crows and vultures will soon account for him." I cried out, "In God's name, why have you brought me here? I am still alive. I need the help of a doctor. Why have I thus been treated? And who was that unfortunate young man in the cage hanging from the tree?" "He is the nephew of the king of this land," replied one of the Abyssinians, "and his father was once on the throne. When he was dying, he said to his brother, 'Look after the country until my son comes of age to rule, my dear brother. I am not long now for this world. Marry him to your daughter when he is the right age, and let them be happy together.' After saying this, the old king died. Immediately the younger brother crowned himself king, and said that his nephew, being insane, should be confined in that cage in the garden. The princess is his mistress, and they are parted in this cruel way, she at home, he in the cage. She sent him a love letter by you, but the spies instantly told the wicked usurper. A body of Abyssinians was ordered to kill you at once. The usurper king has decided that the princess should kill the rightful king in order to put him out of his misery." "Let us go," I said. "We must see this, even if we die as well." So the 2 soldiers and myself went to the scene and stood in the darkened corner. The evil king was seated on his throne. The princess held in her delicate hands a bare-bladed sword. She advanced with the sword to kill her lover, but when she approached the prince, she threw the sword away. She rushed into the prince's arms and told him, "I use this pretext in order to be able to see you, even for a few seconds." The king was greatly enraged and ordered the vizier, "You shall do it." The princess was carried off to the seraglio, sobbing in a most heartbroken manner. With one blow, the vizier severed the unfortunate prince's head from his shoulders. Then, as he raised his arm, an arrow from an unknown direction pierced the vizier through the forehead, and he fell like an ox. They put the mutilated young prince back into his cage, and the false king retired into his sanctum. I came out from where I was hidden. Nobody saw me either come or go. A slave took me to the princess, who, seeing me wounded, sent for a doctor and said, "Cure this young man as speedily as you can. Your welfare depends upon it." At the end of 40 days, I was once more in perfect health, thanks to that doctor's ministrations. The princess then rewarded the doctor and gave me a robe of honour. She also presented me with a large sum of money, much more than the worth of the things she had bought from me, and I was absolutely delighted. I got all my friends and fellow merchants together, and, with our servants, we set out for home. When I reached this place, I had a garden made here, and had a statue carved of the princess. I began to live here, dismissing my friends and my servants, living here with peace and in simplicity, hoping to end my days here. Here, with a happy heart, I live and venerate this statue. O Dervishes, on hearing this story, I put on the pilgrim dress and set out to see the country of the Frankish people. I wandered through mountain passes, over rivers and over plains, until at last I was almost as mad-looking as Majnun. At long last I arrived at the Frankish city where the old idol-worshipper had been. I wandered through the streets as he had done, and I often loitered near the princess's house. But I never had a chance of actually seeing her, though many people spoke about her beauty in my hearing. While standing in the bustling bazaar one day, I heard a great commotion, and the people began running in all directions. I saw to my surprise there was a young man rushing along, brandishing a sword, roaring like a wild bull. He stopped when he saw me, and rolling his eyes like a lunatic, seemed just about to cut me in two. But I stood my ground, and he passed me. He went on, followed by 2 slaves who carried what looked like a coffin covered with the finest velvet embroidered with gold. Being a curious man, I followed, wondering where they were going and how far this charade would go. The young man went towards a large, impressive-looking house. I also went with him. He looked back and seemed once more to be about to do me some harm, but thought better of it and stopped. "Go ahead," I said. "I am tired of life and have no fear of dying. Kill me if you will." He looked amazed. "Why are you courting death?" he asked. "Let us sit somewhere and I will tell you all," I said. "My story is long. I am caught in the teeth of a fiendish dilemma. My malady is love, and I am willing to die for it." He took me into his house, gave me food, and then we sat on a carpet with our backs against the finest bolsters of Bokhara embroidery, and I told him everything. When I had finished the story about the old man and the statue of the princess, and my reason for coming there to see if I could catch a glimpse of her, he looked serious. "Oh, if only you knew the number of innocent men this fabulously beautiful princess has ruined already. Wait here, and I will show you something about your situation." He sent for his barber, and I was shaved, washed, and dressed in clean clothes. "This coffin which you see here, carried into the courtyard by these 2 slaves, contains the body of that unfortunate young prince who was in the cage and killed through the treachery of a vizier. I am his foster brother. It was I who shot the arrow which killed the vizier. Since then, my occupation has been to precede the coffin through the streets, mourning my poor brother's end with every fibre of my being." I thought, God has made this madman friendly towards me. Perhaps there is some reason which is so far hidden that I should continue to stay with him. So I said, "I understand your troubles, my friend. I shall make my home with you for a while, if it be agreeable to you." "By all means," he answered. "Stay under my roof as long as you like. Come with me, and I will take you to the abode of the princess. Let us carry together the coffin of my murdered brother. You take one end, and I will take the other." So we carried the coffin along with us, and presently arrived at a vast courtyard, full of slaves and serving boys, carrying food and drinks hither and thither. Precious scents perfumed the air, and fountains played in the centre, as cool as the waters of paradise. We set down our burden and sent a message to the princess that we wanted to be allowed to see her. To my surprise, in a short time, the magnificently attired lady herself came out, and mounted a few steps, on top of which rested a cushioned velvet throne. Her face was covered by a fine, rose-colored silk veil. She was attended by 4 girls of the most voluptuous type of beauty, almost as great as her own, each dressed in the costume of her native nation. The foster brother stood before her in an attitude of respect, first with folded arms, and then sat down on a corner of the carpet. Then the prayers for the dead were intoned. The foster brother spoke. "O pearl of the world, upon you be peace. Know that the Prince of Persia has left his country and people, having heard of your peerless beauty and excellence. The pilgrim of Balkh has left his land for you, and has spent a long time wandering through the city, friendless and alone, searching for a sight of you. At last, wishing to die for love of you, he has joined me. I was just about to strike with my sword upon his neck, but he did not move. He courted death, as he swears he has no more wish to live. Take pity upon him, I beg you, in the name of justice." The princess's veil was now slightly pulled aside, and I saw her exceedingly beautiful features and large, lustrous eyes. "Is he really a prince?" she asked. "Is he here? Let him come before me." At once the foster brother got up and took me forward. As I looked at the princess, my heart beating wildly, I almost lost my wits, and it seemed for an eternity that I gazed into her eyes. Then she drew her veil back over her face, and daintily stepped from the throne and down to the floor and away through a curtained doorway. Still under her spell, I stood like one turned to ice. My new friend took me back to his house and told me, "I have told the princess all your circumstances, the tale of your life and adventures from beginning to end, and now she knows everything about you. Now, go there every night and wait upon her, and enjoy her company. When evening came, I went back to the palace and sat down on a bolster to await her appearance. After I had been waiting in the reception hall about an hour, she came slowly in, looking more beautiful than ever, absolutely as dazzling as the sun in her rainbow-hued silks and jewels. Here we were alone, except for one young female slave, and to my great joy, she came and sat down on the cushion beside me, the slave fanning her with a fan of peacock's feather. I blessed God that I should be given such joy. I knelt and kissed her ivory-white feet, cased in embroidered sandals. She spoke. "Rise up, do not abase yourself thus to me. Go, it were better that you went away, perhaps to some other country, as soon as you conveniently can." "But I have only just found you. Be kind to me, and let me gaze upon you," I cried. I took her by the hand, and we walked together, looking into each other's eyes, through the house and into the garden, and then into the street and into the city, until we knew not where we were, so deep was the power of our feelings. Suddenly, we realized that we were lost. The princess in a temper said, "I can go no further than this. Take me to a place of rest immediately. My feet are blistered. Surely you must be mad to bring me out of my palace like this." "My house is just ahead of us." In much distress, I now began to lie. "Just be patient a few minutes longer." But as luck would have it, we arrived at a huge door, which had a lock on the outside sealed with a great mass of red wax. I fumbled with the wax, and realizing that the house must be empty, sealed against the owner's return, opened it, and we entered. It was a most magnificent house, with carpets of Shiraz and Afghanistan laid out on the marble floors, mirrors on the walls, and goblets full of wine arranged on the table covered with Damascus linen. Fruits and fresh breads were laid on plates of Chinese porcelain, and a huge dish of roast meats was in the kitchen, newly cooked. We were so tired and hungry that we fell upon the good things like savages. It seemed an age since we last ate or drank. Afterwards, we passed the night in a bed of the finest white linen, and covers made of feathers. It was sheer bliss to be with my beautiful princess in that fantastically appointed house. When morning came, the whole town was in an uproar about the disappearance of the princess. Proclamations were hung on every street corner, and heralds trumpeted the news from every turret. Messengers were dispatched hither and thither to search every corner of the city, and guards were posted every few yards in every rural area around. No ant was allowed to go about its business without being examined. Boxes and cupboards were searched, and cellars and attics were entered by the royal troops. In short, the whole district was in a ferment. It was noised abroad that whoever should bring any news about the princess's whereabouts would be given 1,000 pieces of gold, and everyone of high or low degree joined in the search. It could only be a matter of time before they came to the house where we were hiding, and indeed it happened very soon. A wizened old hag, all dressed in black with a string of prayer beads in her hand, came through the door. As I had broken the lock, it would not remain closed. She raised her one good eye to heaven and rained blessings upon my lady, who was sitting inside the reception hall.
"Oh, respected lady of the house," she whined, "I crave your help in the name of all that is holy. I have a poor daughter who is at this moment in great pain in childbirth. Being only a wretched beggar, I have not one copper piece with which to buy anything for the girl, neither oil for the lamp, nor food for either of us. Noble lady, give me, in memory of your own mother, a morsel of something, that I may not return to our hovel empty-handed."
My dear princess, out of the kindness of her heart, rose and gave the woman the ring from her own finger, and some bread and roast meat, as much as that dreadful hag could carry away. She also told the woman that she could come back when those provisions were finished, and have as much as she needed any time she liked. The villainous-looking hag, whom I hated the very sight of the minute I laid eyes on her, then blessed my lady to the skies with the most extraordinarily extravagant phrases, and went away. I suspected that she might be up to some mischief, because her story did not ring true to me with my experience of life. Now, no sooner than she had gone outside the door than she threw away the eatables, but kept the ring, saying,
"Aha! Now I have a clue to the princess's identity."
But as she got to the gate, the master of the house returned. He was riding a brave Arab horse, had a spear in his hands, and was full of valour. Seeing his door broken open and the hag coming out with a guilty look upon her wizened features, he challenged her at once. Her babblings made no sense to him. He seized her and tied her to a tree. The moment I saw that warrior's appearance, I was overcome with fear. But I need not have worried, for as soon as the owner of the house saw the princess, he fell on one knee before her, recognizing her at once. He vowed that none should know she was there, and that she should remain as long as ever she needed. The princess smiled and said, "This prince brought me here, as I was weary and my feet were becoming blistered after I had walked all the way from the palace." "May I be the sacrifice for your highness's life," cried the soldier. "I will defend you and the prince from all comers. If anyone should try to take you away, let them reckon with me." "Thank you, brave subject, from the bottom of my heart," she replied. "What is your name?" I asked. "One day, when I am able, I will repay this great loyalty of yours to the princess and myself, come what may." "I am Behzad Khan." For a period of about 6 months, he allowed us to live in his home, treated with every luxury and in perfect, peaceful security. Only the thought of my parents and my native land, coming to me sometimes, cast a shadow of gloom over the wonder of my life with the princess. Seeing me in a mood of melancholy, Behzad Khan inquired, "What have I not done that you should be unhappy under my roof? Tell me, prince, and I will immediately have it remedied." "It is nothing, my friend. Only that now and again the remembrance of my home and my parents come to me for a few moments," I said. "Who could have done more for us than you, protecting us and feeding us with such great generosity? If you are tired of this place, I will go with you and guard you on the journey home, even if it take me the rest of my life," said the brave fellow. "Perhaps I should go to my country for a little while," I mused, thinking about it more seriously. "I would not be gone long. I do owe my parents a duty to see how they are progressing, and what is their present condition, after such a long absence. Indeed, as I have neglected to write to them, they do not know whether I am living or dead." "Prince," said the man, "I will buy the finest horse of Turkoman breed for you to ride, and a Syrian mare for the princess. Then we shall set out as soon as you give the order." He was as good as his word, and the next day brought the horses to us. When we had got our provisions for the journey, we rode to the gate of the city, and the soldier, armed to the teeth, rode with us. There were 3 armed soldiers at the gate, and Behzad Khan swept them aside as we galloped out. After a short time, we found we were being followed by a detachment of troops, who menaced us from the rear with spears glinting in the sun. When it seemed that they would not leave us alone, Behzad Khan wheeled about and dashed among them like a wolf among sheep, and with his great sword cut off the head of the leader, shouting, "Come on, for I am Behzad. Whoever wishes to lose his head, try to fight me." At this, and having lost their captain, the others turned tail and rode away. As the saying is, all depends on the head. When that is gone, all is lost. So we were able to pass on in peace out of those dominions. To cut a long story short, we travelled many miles over fords of rivers, through valleys set with blue lakes, and skirted great salty marshes. At last we reached the very furthest province of my father's kingdom, and I sent a villager ahead with a letter to my father, telling him of my arrival in our native land. As we were taking a boat to the other side of our largest river, I saw on the far bank a giant cavalcade of my father's nobles, amirs and viziers in finest array, with trumpeters and flags. I urged my Turkoman horse into the water and swam across in great glee, riding up to my father the king with all the joy in the world. He embraced me with deep emotion, and we were happier together than we had been since I was a boy. But a calamity occurred in the next few moments. The mare upon which my princess was riding, seeing the Turkoman swim away, plunged into the river to try to get to the other side in the same way. But the Syrian mare, not being as strong as my steed, was overpowered by the current, and the princess pulled hard at her bridle. The poor mare turned over in the swirling water, bringing the princess down into the raging depths with her. The water bore them both away, while we tried to save them, but as we watched helplessly, they disappeared from sight. Behzad Khan, with his usual bravery, plunged into the river on horseback to try to rescue the princess, but he was sucked under by the tremendous currents and could not extricate himself. His horse managed to swim ashore, but of poor Behzad's body there was no sign. The king gave orders that the river should be dragged, but those soldiers and village fishermen with nets tried all day long. There was nothing that could be done to find either the princess or the soldier. O wearers of the dervish robe, can you imagine my distress? Can you find it in your hearts to pity me in that moment when I realized that my beautiful princess was gone forever? Surely no man, since the world began, was as tortured as I was at that time. If my princess had died of illness or old age, I could perhaps have borne it with fortitude. But to be drowned before my very eyes in the moment of my joy in reunion with my father, that night while encamped on that bank, thinking of my lost love, I decided I would kill myself by drowning in that very river which had taken her life. No sooner was I up to my neck in the water than I was pulled out of the river by that veiled, green-robed horseman who was your rescuer. He comforted me, saying, "Do not be foolish, and cast away the life which Allah has given you. The princess and Bihzad Khan are alive. Have patience, and one day you will see them again. Go now to the city of Rum. When you meet the other dervishes who are also going there, you will get that which you wish for above all else in the world. Farewell." And with that he was gone from my sight like snow upon the face of the desert. So now, brother dervishes, I am here at this fateful rendezvous, hoping against hope that what he said would indeed be true. This is my true history, which I have laid before you, adding nothing and taking nothing away.